welcome back or welcome. My name is Rochelle, and this is Verde Diaries, where we can have a safe space as girls to talk, and for the guys too, but mostly for my girls, to be able to express and feel the things that are not the norm or normal feelings in society, and be able to accept them so we can move to our true selves, move faster to our future selves. So in the last video, I was talking about the journey to self-acceptance, and I kind of want to touch on that topic again. And I think this is going to be like little part 2. So I started reading The Artist's Way. If you haven't heard about that book, which if you haven't, then you might live under a rock, because it's literally been everywhere. I think it was really, really hitting it off last year during the summer, if I'm not mistaken. It was going viral all over TikTok. A lot of people have said that it was changing their lives and helping them become more creative. And I'm definitely a person that when things are super, super hype or viral, I definitely wait for that to die down so I can enjoy it in peace and quiet, especially with TV shows, because I hate having them spoiled for me. That's besides the point. I definitely read a lot. In my previous endeavors, conquests, I was reading a lot of dark romance. And I think that over time, it has, not that I've lost interest. I love me a good romance book, but I definitely wanted to open up the things that I've read and trying to understand myself in the process of that, because the books that you read are definitely a reflection of you. And I kind of seen that I obviously had this yearn for love, because it's fun when love is up here, you know what I mean? When it's up in your minds, when you aren't actually living in it, because you don't have to experience, you don't get attached, because it's not really you. It's a character, but you get attached to it, but you're able to understand that at the end of the day, it's a character. So I started to read authors like Mitch Albom, if that's how you say his last name, and the woman that wrote what's the name of that book actually? I think it's about an author that she kind of correlates women to wolves, and kind of helping us tap into our creativity and being able to understand how strong we are, and how in order for us to be amazing creatives, we have to go back to our roots. So that's the theme of the things I've been reading. And The Artist's Way is kind of the same, where Julia, which is the author, really touches on something really important, which has to do with the topic that I want to talk about today, where she talks about that the main focus when it comes to tapping into your creativity and accepting it and taking it serious is being able to accept it. And that's part of who you are. And that's part of self-acceptance, where she makes it known and she validates you as you read the book, where the ugly parts of yourself, that she calls it the censor, where the censor is kind of the part that reminds you, is part of the subconscious that reminds you how unlovable you are, how you're not capable of success, or you will always be poor, or all of these negative things that are correlated to your dreams, right? Sometimes when we want to manifest and we write down these things or we say it out loud, there's parts of us that kind of have that automatic inner monologue that lets go of so many things and reminds us of how we're not worthy of those things, which we are. And it was such a beautiful experience. Mind you, I'm still in week 1. The book definitely does. She breaks it down to 12 weeks. And each week it's a different thing, or you kind of build a routine where you write 3 pages. And in those 3 pages, you don't really think about what you're writing. You kind of just release subconsciously what it is that's on your mind. And the 3 pages are super random. After you finish writing the 3 pages, you let it go. You don't look back on it until you're done with it, of course. And as you're doing this, you write affirmations, things correlated to your creative side and your dreams and things that you want to aspire to be. And then you also write down the ugly things. And that's really what was the most outstanding part about doing it. I'm on day 2, is that sometimes we hide from those ugly things that we say to ourselves because we want to so heartily believe that we're capable of just brushing it under the rug, you know, like we are capable. If we ignore it enough, it'll go away. And to be honest, what that creates is just, it creates an infinite scar instead of stitching it, closing it, and letting it heal. It reopens every time, because every time that you do try to step closer and closer to your dreams, every time you start to affirm, every time you start doing some mirror exercises and reminding yourself how great you are, or you going to therapy and you're journaling and you're exercising, these things are still popping up, because as much as we have conditioned ourselves and made ourselves comfortable with ignoring, it's not solving the problem. And even with myself, when I was doing the exercise, it was definitely very hard to expose. I felt exposed. I felt very vulnerable, being able to acknowledge and understand that I too myself, as someone that wants to turn on this camera and talk to other people and share my own experiences and give insight, I too am capable of wanting to hide these things and ignoring them, because I somehow feel in denial with it, you know, like, no, I don't see myself that way, because it's subconscious, but it's in our actions, every choice, every decision, even down to the thing that you drink every day. It's all part of a conditioning and a thing much bigger than us, in a sense. And there are some things that are out of your control, but when it comes to the decisions and the choices and who you want to become, you can control that. You definitely do have the power to recreate choices that better you every day, closer to your future self. And it's humorous sometimes when I do see people that do spread the self-help words and motivational things, and don't ever bring up on how ugly it can truly get. And I'm repeating that word, and I really do emphasize on that word, because I think it's the best word to describe what it feels like sometimes when we break down, when we cry, when we get frustrated, when we pray endlessly, when we sometimes don't feel heard and seen by God, when we don't feel heard and seen by our friends and family, when venting doesn't do enough, right? It doesn't bring enough validation, which is another thing too. Especially for myself, it's always been a thing where venting created ruminating thoughts for me. And it was funny, because when I first learned about ruminating thoughts, I was like, wait, that's kind of me. Like, I kind of do that, right? When I have a new crush and I am getting to know somebody and we're getting to know each other, I tend to obsess over them, and I'm in limerence and everything is lustful and amazing, and I'm super high, right? With this person, their personality, they're so great. Ignoring all of these red flags, of course, but when we're in that state, we're creating this kind of imaginary, it's not a grounded set of feelings, right? It's very much a fantasy. You live in your head. You're putting this person on such a high pedestal that you're not even realizing you're doing it. And I think that was the biggest thing for me when I would vent to my friends. I didn't even see how that was a condition of itself of creating ruminating thoughts, because I was venting to them about the same thing over and over again, which meant that I wasn't over it. I didn't actually move on from the situation, because every time that I spoke about it, it was me reopening up that same wound over and over again and ignoring it, right? And letting it get infected and not really taking care of it, not putting any bacterial things on it. I kept reopening it. And then the thing was that as I'm complaining and saying these things and venting and having these ruminating thoughts and crashing the fuck out and doing all these extra things, I'm also not cutting contact with this person. So in reality, I was on an endless cycle of stupidity when I look back at it, because I was like, damn, like, get it together. And of course, don't call yourself stupid. It's just me being me, but definitely don't call yourself ugly words, and validate your experience and understand that it is very much a beautiful thing to feel, even when you're in limerence, even when you're crashing out. It's a beautiful thing to stay in touch with your emotions. But it's also very important to be aware of these things and then learning how to regulate it, right? Because in reality, for me, like ruminating thoughts and limerence and a lot of these things and the venting was kind of like, it was kind of like an addiction, which is the best correlation to it. It was a bit of an obsession. It was a conditioning that was so tightly wounded to my soul. I thought that if I didn't have it, I couldn't do it. I couldn't have a friendship if I didn't vent, or I couldn't be with someone if there wasn't the spark. And those things are wrong. Because one thing that I've had to learn is that when you are bored, you are at peace. But boredom can also lead to so many different negative things if you don't learn how to appreciate it with a good mindset and perspective. And I feel like that was the biggest thing for me, where because when I was bored, I looked for these bad experiences. I looked and made these bad decisions because I thought that having that spark and feeling that dopamine high and feeling just that rush of excitement was the key for me to move forward, when it actually stumped my growth. It caused me to stay behind in a way, emotionally. And it really caused a disconnect for me, because then I started to see that because I was emotionally stumped a bit, I was attracting people within that same kind of thing. They were great people. They are great people. But I can see where the emotional disconnect is. And so when I started to realize it, I could no longer relate to them. You know what I mean? I could no longer relate to those people that were within that same frequency as me. And it can be very heartbreaking if you're super close. For me, it wasn't the case, which I'm grateful for, because sometimes you also learn master the law of detachment, where you understand that the experience is to be experienced. You live through it, you feel it, you hear it, you sense it. There's just so many things going on, and you learn how to cherish it and appreciate it for what it is. But then when it's time for it to go, you have to learn how to let it go. And that we are meant to feel pain, right? We are meant to feel those things because we are human and we grieve. And even the person doesn't have to be dead for you to grieve. You can grieve yourself or your old selves. It's just a matter of understanding that that is what is not what life is about. I hate saying that, such vague quote, but it's about what it is for you. I like to say it's a more individual thing, because at the end of the day, these are your experiences. These are the things that you are validating for yourself. And understanding that in order for you to let new things in, old things have to go. It's just like spring cleaning. When you're cleaning your closet and you see that there's clothes that you don't connect to anymore, you don't wear them as much, they tell old stories, right? You've walked miles in these clothes, you've kissed in these clothes, you've danced in these clothes, but they don't connect with who you are anymore, because you don't dance in the same rooms, you don't kiss the same boys, and you don't experience and laugh in within the same environments, right? So sometimes it's like, it's okay, someone else can get to experience that, so you donate it. And I feel like that's at least the analogy I like to use when I think about when I want to move forward with my life, right? When I want to accept who I am, you have to love all of these old versions of yourself and the parts of you that were negative and hated life or had bad friends, or you were a bad friend, right? Or a cheater, or you've lied or you've been deceitful. All of these things are in us. And when we learn to accept them and appreciate them and learn from them is when we can then move forward to being the great parts, because you are the great parts, but actually executing and performing them and stepping into the shoes of what it is to be a good friend, to be an honest person, to have some integrity, to be determined, to be disciplined. These are the things that you have to, whatever is your thing, right? My thing is clothes. I like to use the analogy of the shoes and the clothes and putting the things on that makes me feel good. Doing my makeup, right? Reading the books and buying the things. Like, not material is everything, but using the analogy as it is for me, these are the things that make me happy. Journaling, right? Use what it is that you hold close to you that helps you, and use that. You know what I mean? Use that to move forward and to create a more positive mindset and to look at life in such a more beautiful, mindful setting. And I feel like that's another thing too, where another point I want to touch on is switching your lens. You know, throw away the rose-colored ones, throw away the old ones that you don't want to let go and are a little broken, a little chapped, you know, and get some new ones. And just be mindful of how the trees look when the wind is flowing, or the food that you're eating, how much you love it, how much you're enjoying it. Sit at a bench at a park and people watch people be happy, and kids playing soccer and how much that fulfills their lives, or couples walking by. So when you have that perspective where you can be mindful and look at things in a different light, then you're able to understand that you shouldn't accept certain things. And I mean this in the with the utmost respect. Those people that you let into your life that take advantage of you, those people that manipulate you, have cheated on you, have lied to you, have used you, it's not 100% your fault, but then it comes into a certain extent, right, where you have to hold yourself accountable, and you have to look at the things that surround you, right? You have to be able to understand and then accept that these parts of yourself that you want to let go of, that you need to love a little more, are the reason why you're attracting the people that you do. And sometimes when you realize that, it turns you off, right? And then you not only accept and love these parts, so then you can perform and execute how to be better, but then you also then get turned off by these people, and you're like, well, I kind of don't want to be with you anymore. I kind of don't want to be your friend anymore. I kind of don't want to talk to you anymore. I don't think that you stand for what I stand for. And that is totally okay. Sometimes we want to feel a bit guilty because we want certain people in our lives, because we've already been so attached to them. It's a bit of a habit, you know what I mean? Like, you can still love this person, you can still want them in your life, but there's also a part of yourself that is really around them, or you really want them there because you're comfortable with them, because you don't have to try and step out of your comfort zone, because you don't have to try and meet someone new and get into new places and new environments and experiment a little bit more. And again, that is okay to have those fears and validate yourself on those fears and the things that you're feeling. But you're never going to get to where you want to, or be able to fully understand what it takes to get to where you want to, until you understand those things. Because you can still get there, right? But your journey might be a little bit more painful. Your journey might take a little longer. The route might be just a little tad bit longer, which, again, that's okay. If that's what you choose, if that's what will make you happy, if you are not ready to let go of those things and you want to wait a little longer, do it. But understand that with good consequences and good rewards comes bad ones. And sometimes you're going to have to, accept that as well. And that's another thing, is that once you accept yourself, you learn to understand yourself. And because you understand yourself, accept yourself, you love yourself, you're then able to look outwards into the things that surround you and understand that and show a little bit more grace, and then be able to set your boundaries and have these limits and stand up for yourself. Because the only person that can do that is you. So I think I'm going to leave it at this. I think that this was a very, very beautiful talk, a beautiful exchange. I hope that you learned a little something from me and felt safe and comfortable listening to me. And I'm just happy to be here. I will definitely be continuing the Artist Way. I will be doing little updates on that. I think that it's going to be very magical in the sense of learning more about myself and then being comfortable with my creative side. So I definitely can't wait for that. But again, thank you. Appreciate you, my lovelies. And I hope you guys have a wonderful night, morning, afternoon, day. Eat well and hydrate. Mwah.